Hello, and welcome to another video. So we are officially halfway through the year, halfway through 2024. And I'm sure all those resolutions that you made in January seem like a distant memory. And you might be kicking yourself in the butt that you haven't done some of the things that you wanted to do to get financially fit. And so there are still things you can do for the end of the year and for wrapping up 2024 and feeling like you did something productive with this year, getting more financially in line with what you want. I know, out there, obviously, it's difficult right now. Groceries are so expensive. Gas is expensive. Everything just is going up and up and up. We've got an election, so people tend to not want to do things the year of the election or use that as an excuse, I would say, of why they don't want to necessarily handle their finances or make a decision on something. And I'm going to tell you that the more that we use elections and different things as excuses to not do it, the more we don't do it. Because really, this is a presidential election, and of course it's 4 years. But every 2 years we have an election. So you're just not going to do anything every 2 years? That would just be silly, right? So today we're going to go through some kind of unique things that you could start doing at the second half of 2024 to get you revved up, to get you on track, and to get you really set up for 2025. I know that seems silly to be thinking about 2025, but do you still plan on making money? Do you still plan on having goals and dreams and other things in 2025? If so, then you should be thinking about it, right? And so that's what we're going to do is we are on the path of trying to get you to financial independence as quickly as possible. That's what I do for my clients. I'm a financial advisor, have been for over 13 years. And let's get you to that financial independence phase. So if you're tired of the same old financial advice, stick around because we do things a little differently here. And with that, let's start thinking about those goals that you had at the beginning of 2024. A lot of people have financial goals, they have dietary goals, they have exercise goals. Are you still going to the gym? Are you still doing all that stuff? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully you are, but a lot of people kind of let themselves down in some respects. You make all these promises to yourself and then you don't keep them. And I think part of the reason is that, are those goals really our goals? Are they goals that society has told us that we should do, or are they actually goals that are appealing to you? So let's say one of your goals this year was to have a budget and stay on budget, right? Well, that's probably didn't happen. Maybe you put together an Excel spreadsheet or you wrote it all out and you were like, yes, I got my budget. Did you stick with it? Probably not, right? Probably not. But what if you could instead say, look, I didn't hit that goal, but I have a new way of thinking about budgeting. A new way of thinking about budgeting might be just being more conscientious of what you're spending your money on. I have this thing that I tell some clients to do that works for them, which is think about your week financially. So on Sunday afternoon, if you have a cup of tea or if you have a glass of wine, whatever your choosing is, mine is usually a glass of wine, you sit there for a couple minutes and think about, what are you planning on spending money on this week. And let's say you're going to go out with your friend Molly, that might be $40, and then you're going to go out and go to the movies and on a date with your spouse or with your partner or with some new person. And, that's going to be like $50-$60. And then, so you start thinking about your week and you actually start being conscientious of what you're spending your money on. Another thing people could do is just look at their credit card statements once a week. See what you're spending money on. See where your credit card is going and how you can maybe make that lower. Play some games. Do some fun things for yourself in terms of making this a game. See how much you could save. Instead of sitting there and going, oh, for food, I only can spend $1,000 this month and I spent $1,200. That's not quite the way to do it. The way to do it is to really just be aware of where your money is going, how you're spending it, and that financial week thought, it's really only 10 minutes that you have to spend thinking about it, is a way to do that. And then once you get that into a habit, then you start thinking about, okay, well, what did I spend last week? I thought, going out with my friend was $40, but maybe it was $55. And that date, that was horrible. So I did not spend that amount of money. I spent $20 on that movie ticket and I was out of there, So you can think about your week, think about what you were projecting on spending for the week. Write that down. Maybe you were projecting on spending $1,000 this week. And you actually only spent $700, or you spent $1,500, and it helps you kind of figure out where you're standing. What do you think you're spending versus what you actually are spending? And that will give you a lot of leverage while you are trying to figure out how to budget for yourself. Saving strategies, being smart with your savings. I have a whole video that I will link below about high yield savings accounts and just smart ways to save money. There are so many people that are still sitting in regular bank accounts with a huge amount of money, and that might not be the best place for your money. Are you taking advantage of it? Are you letting interest help you save, right? Because I always say, okay, maybe you're not saving exactly what you wanted. Maybe it was $500 a month or whatever that was. But if you're saving $300 a month and getting interest, and maybe you're getting $50 a month on interest, now you're at $350 that you're saving. So think of it that way. Think of it as a leg up on your saving. If you're kind of low, or if you save 500, you're actually saving 550, or maybe the interest is more because you've got more that you're saving. So that is another thing, is to really take advantage of things that are out there. Do a little research, ask some questions. There's always a link in the description below for you to set up a call if you have questions on how to save in a better manner to help you get ahead. We are happy to help you with some ideas for that work for you. The other thing that people don't necessarily utilize is they always think that the cash back on credit cards and things like that, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's always about points for travel. I'm not saying that that's not a good use of it, but how much are you traveling? And how often are you using that? And are points going away, or are you stacking them? Like, how is that working for you? And maybe there are some other options out there. There are cashback options that are available on credit cards. That might be a better way for you to utilize those points to help you save more. So I'm not saying everybody should switch away from their points. If you travel a lot and that's what happens, great. But it might be a good time if you're not traveling very much, because it's so dang expensive to travel nowadays. It really is. Flights are crazy prices now. And, of course you're saying, well, that's what you have the points for, Lisa. But I'm just saying that maybe you're not traveling so much right now. Maybe you want to consider utilizing other options for your cash back on your credit cards. That can be another way to help save. Just those little switches can make a huge difference when it comes to building up your wealth. And so also taking a look at your investments. Right now, the market has done pretty well this year, so it's not so scary. So maybe looking at your investments would be a good idea. I know people don't like it when it's down, and it will go down again. I promise you, that is one thing that we know for sure. At some point, it will go down again. But, look at your investments, see how they're doing, see what's happening. Are you getting rate of return? How is that being paid into the account? Is that getting reinvested? Is it getting put to cash and now you've got too much cash in the account? That happens a lot, is people have selected, if they're doing their investments on their own, the choice of not reinvesting, but for having any kind of rate of return or dividends or anything that comes into the account go to cash. Well, now we're sitting on way too much cash in the account, and you don't even know because you're not looking at your accounts. that money could be making money for you. So just being a little bit more aware of what's going on with your investing and seeing what areas should you be pushing into. You know, should you be a little heavier on the US stocks? Should you be a little heavier on small US stocks? Should you be a little heavier on international stocks? It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But I think taking a look at, I'm not a huge proponent of robo-advisors, mainly because I don't think that they know what your goals are and they just kind of stick you in some portfolio. But there is something to be said about looking at the portfolios that are built out by the different companies. All the different companies build out portfolios, and you can take a look and see what they are doing. And those are typically the kind of things that they're telling their clients to do. So if you are self-managing, take a look at what they're doing. Take a look at the tweaks that they're making. Fidelity, I know, comes out all the time with different tweaks that they're making on their portfolios, and see what they're doing. Are they moving away from large stock, US stocks, and are they moving it to small cap? I'm making this up. I have no idea what they've done recently, but those are kind of trends that you can get into to see what are these big managers doing, and does that fit for me? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but being in the know is really good, and I think it's actually kind of interesting once you do that. So another thing that I think is really important when it comes to finance and thinking ahead is preventative. I've talked about, there's a video that I've done, and I'll link it below, called Preventative Finance. And preventative finance is the same as preventative healthcare. Starting to think about things that could be coming up that you might not be ready for. That's why you have your emergency fund. And if you haven't started your emergency fund, or you dipped into it and you haven't rebuilt it, this would be a great time to do that. But I also think making sure that you are taking care of yourself, both health-wise, financially, those kind of things are important, because even just going to the doctor is important, because you might push off some very expensive procedures you might have to do later if you go regularly. And if you just keep checking and making sure you're healthy, you're eating healthy, that kind of thing. Sometimes we can go overboard. I've had clients who go a little overboard when it comes to the eating healthy diet. They're buying some of these ridiculously high, I almost said ridiculous programs. I don't know if they're ridiculous programs, but these ridiculously high price tag programs because it's for their health. And I think self-care can be labeled as something that's a necessity for us, but there are other things that you can do for self-care. And actually that kind of leads into the next video I'm going to be doing, which is on the new self-care trend that is going on, and how much money are we actually spending on self-care, and is that really self-care, or is that actually causing a lot of stress and issues because we're spending so much money on that? But I digress for a second. But I do think spending a little time on preventative things, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, taking care of your financial health, is really important, just because you don't know when that thing is going to hit that you need to be prepared for. And so, that's the thing to do, is really start thinking preventatively, thinking about ahead, how can I prevent that from happening? Or how can I make sure I'm prepared if something should happen, right? So, I hate to say this, it sounds a little morbid, but making sure your wills and trusts are in order, making sure your beneficiaries are all up to date, making sure all of that is taken care of, is part of preventativeness, right? To make sure that everything's in place when it needs to be, so you don't have to think about it anymore. And I would do that, honestly. I would look at things like, your wills and trusts and all that stuff at least once a year, just to make sure. Mistakes happen, sometimes you have a beneficiary attached to something and it disappears off the system. That happens a lot. This is one thing that I really want everybody to do. If you have a 401k at work, make sure you check that a lot, because I've had people who the company changes 401ks and you think nothing of it, and you go along your day and you realize that there is no beneficiary attached. Just because the beneficiary is attached to the old companies, for the old 401k company, not you didn't change companies, but the old 401k company, let's say you change from a Vanguard 401k to a Fidelity 401k, they don't move those beneficiaries over. So you have to make sure all that stuff is up to date. So make sure you check that stuff at least once a year, because that's really important. And unfortunately, that can play a role in making sure your family and your friends or whoever your beneficiary is taken care of. I would say little DIY projects, just like you do as a homeowner or somebody around the house, is that you do these little DIY to make sure your house is not falling apart, right? So you change your filters and, you make sure, everything, you spackle anything that needs to be spackled, or you do painting updates, or you change a shower head to a low flow one, or whatever you end up doing to keep your house up to date. In some respects, little projects around the house, DIY, right? You should be doing that for your finances. So when is the last time you've taken a look at subscriptions and said, I don't really need that anymore? Save yourself $150. I know it doesn't feel like it's that much money, but $150 is $150. And let's say you find 3 or 4 subscriptions that you canceled $150. Now that's adding up. That's adding up to a lot of money. It could be a couple $1,000s of different subscriptions you could get rid of, which is money in your pocket, which is more money you can save, which is more money that you can build wealth off of. It's all a big circle, right? So cancel unused subscriptions. Go through your credit card. Don't be afraid to see what's going on. And a lot of these companies will send you updates. Like I had a subscription come up and I thought, I just don't use that anymore. I just canceled it. And they make it super easy nowadays. So there's really no excuse to not cancel things that you don't use. Don't talk yourself into it. Don't say, I know I'm going to use it, or I should use it. That's just a big old waste of money. If you're not using it, you should cancel it. And you can always sign up, and oftentimes they give you a better deal, right? How often did we hear about that when we were all on cable, right? That they give the new people better deals than they give the people who've been with them a long time. That can happen still. So you might you can re-sign up if you really want to later on. Just don't keep paying money for things that you're not utilizing. And, like I said, looking at impulse buys, looking at, do I really need that? Is that something I really need to be doing? And should I be, taking that money and doing something else with it? And I think the biggest way of moving away from impulse buys is to move towards something exciting. So we talked about vacations. Now I just told you to move away from vacation points. Of course, I'm not telling that to everybody, but let's say a trip is something you guys really want. You haven't gone on one for a long time or something like that. Then you might want to have that as your thing you're saving to, so that it helps with the impulse buys, right? When you want to buy that thing on Amazon, you want to buy that thing off of Instagram, you want to buy that. Take 5 seconds to think, if I didn't spend that money here, could that go to my vacation fund? And start picturing yourself on vacation, or start picturing yourself with that beautiful black dress that you've been wanting to buy. That's, a couple $100. Think about the thing that is going to motivate you to not do the impulse buy, to do the long-term buy, whether that is just a nice piece of clothing that's going to be a staple in your wardrobe for a long time, or, a trip, or a down payment on a house, or building up so that you can retire early, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you could retire at 55 rather than at 65? That might be a dream of yours. And those little purchases add up towards that. So you want to make sure that you are thinking about that stuff. So don't wreck your finances with impulse buys, because that can definitely happen. So those are just a couple of ideas that you can start utilizing, thinking, building that habit, building that muscle, for getting yourself on track for 2024, so that you have set yourself up for success in 2025 and beyond. And there is no better time to start than now. I know we always say, in January I'll do it, or on Monday I'll start my diet, or whatever. But why not start now? Why not just right after this video, turn it off, go to your credit card statement and just start looking at what you spent your money on. It takes 5 minutes. Just do that now. I'm asking you to. So you've got this. These small changes can make a huge improvement in your finances. Our next video coming up, as I just mentioned, is about self-care, and is self-care wrecking your finances? That can happen. And we will go through some very interesting things that I have experienced personally as well. So thank you for watching. Stay financially fit, get motivated, get yourself on track for a very bright future. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.